Hello. Hello. So I was not pleased with my sound last time. And I was like, I got to get me one of these lavalier mics. And I love the little fuzzy thing, but it won't stay on. No, it won't stay on. Hello. Hi, I'm here. I'm so excited to be here again this week. I am Dr. Nikki. This is Dr. Nikki Knows. This is my YouTube channel. We are, I'm gonna leave it alone because I could say distracted. Um, we are going to be sort of going back to go forward this week, and we're going to be talking about keeping it sexy in motherhood and sensuality. This past Sunday was just Mother's Day. It's a complicated holiday for lots of people, including me. And it's complicated because we make motherhood a big deal. We make motherhood this unique sort of moment in time or this unique sort of experience that I think can be more detrimental to an individual than it needs to be. And one of the ways is that we sort of say that motherhood and sexuality don't even go together. Like if you're a mother, you can't be doing X, Y, and Z. I know you all will remember the controversy a couple of years ago with Kiki Palmer and her baby daddy, fiance. I don't know what they are today. And it seems so antiquated to me, but it's still so very true. So today we're let yourself unfold. Let's get into it. So, I'm Dr. Nikki. I am a licensed psychologist, but I'm not your psychologist. And I just want to make sure that's clear. I'm going to give you sort of lots of things to think about, I hope, some tips and tricks before the episode ends, but you know yourself best. Take what resonates, try what works, and leave the rest. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about motherhood and sort of what happens from let's say, sexuality, erotic, sort of developmental lens. And that's why I think it is so important to be clear about why motherhood and sexuality is a unique sort of relationship. There are some physiological hormonal changes that happen to people after giving birth, right? One of which is that there's a really powerful hormone drop and change that sort of happens immediately postpartum. So there's a drop in estrogen and progesterone. And let me tell you something, nobody can prepare you for that drop. I remember feeling like, who am I? What am I? Like crying. I had a complicated birth. My daughter was born 6 weeks premature, and she was low birth weight, and so it was a terrifying, traumatic experience. She was in the NICU for the first month of her life, and so there were some added layers for me. But I definitely remember like feeling so weepy and just not myself, right? And that's part of the hormonal drop that happens. I also chose to breastfeed my child. There are lots of breastfeeding mothers, and that also will shift your hormone. So, what you'll see is an increase in another hormone called prolactin, and then our favorite bonding hormone, oxytocin. But when those things sort of boost to help support the relationship between the child or children, infants, and the mother through breastfeeding, it also does sort of prolong that decreased estrogen and progesterone, which has all of the impacts on not just your internal reproductive system, but your vagina, as well as your own sense of desire and arousal, right? So it's a hormonally, postpartum is like a hormonally wacky period. And depending on how long you breastfeed, that might shift that, right? So there's some real things that happen to birthing people. I also want to talk a little bit about postpartum depression, and that about observed, right? Noted about 10 to 20%. That's like a big range. I know. Pretty much no, like as a general fact, all the science about women that we have is pretty limited or skewed. So, we have work to do. But about 10 to 20% of women experience what's considered clinical level of postpartum depression. And unfortunately, Black women tend to have higher rates of postpartum depression as well. I also think that we don't talk a lot about postpartum depression, and we don't talk a lot about it specifically in the Black community, right? And so, uh, the experience of depression certainly can impact one's sense of eroticism, one's sense of sex, sexuality, sensuality, arousal, desire, all of those things. And so you can immediately in the first year of birthing a child, being a new mother, now we haven't even gotten into all the other sort of psychological, sociological, interpersonal challenges that come along with being a new mother when everything goes right, right? So you can have a lot of these compounding facts that really do like disconnect you from yourself as a sensual self and a sexual self, right? The challenge is, when do you stop it? Like, how long is too long, right? That's really what I would like to get into, and some other things that sort of contribute to what makes motherhood a difficult. I'm not gonna own that. No, I'm not gonna own that. What makes you being more intentional about yourself as a sexual being, as a sensual being, as an erotic being, more important in motherhood than not. The other thing that happens is body changes. And even if bodies don't change, your perception of your body can change. But by and large, I don't know very many real life women like like non-celebrity, like non very wealthy women whose bodies don't change and stay that way for a period of time after having a child, multiple children, right? And so it can really disconnect you from your body. Your listen, this body that I got is it don't look like what it looked like before I had that baby. That's what I also know to be true, right? So I speak from personal experiences. And whether you have a cesarean or whether you have vaginal birth, right? All of those things sort of shift and change stuff. And so if you have experienced yourself as a sexual being through your body, right? Like your perception of your body is one that is attractive and sexy and alluring in whatever ways and shape it has been in before. And then having a child changes that. That can be really disorienting, and it can be a severe knock to your confidence. I also hear experiences where women feel what I hear about directly, and then I sometimes see indirectly, where women's perception of their body through their perception of the male gaze, or sometimes from direct feedback from their male partner, can be really harmful and disrespectful with regard to expectations for the body, trying to adhere to some sort of pre mothering beauty standard. And that's just unrealistic, right? So, if that is you, if you have experienced changes in your body that you are displeased with, or you are perceiving your body in a negative way post motherhood, stop it. Like, like for real, stop it. I think it's really important that you do work around acceptance. You're never going back. You got the beautiful baby. You got it. It's here, right? So some things are not going to go back to the way they were without surgery, and that is a choice that some people make. That comes with risks, right? That also tend to be temporary as well. And I think a really powerful way for you to reclaim your sexuality and reclaim your eroticism even sooner is through not just accepting, but moving through the acceptance to celebrating the body that you have. I am a single mom. I'm a single parent by choice. Judge your mama, take that up with somebody else. And I I remember uh I remember when my child was under 3. She might have been 2-ish. I can't really remember the age that she was, but I know she was young, but she wasn't an infant, right? She wasn't a baby. She probably was eating some table food and running her mouth in baby way, right? Talking. And I had gone home to visit family, and an elder in the family, a close family friend that I treat like an aunt, as she was leaving, she said, "Come walk me out." I'm from the South. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. If you've ever had the opportunity to know, love, experience a Black woman from the South, especially from Baton Rouge, you might have a flavor of what I'm about to share next. She said, "Come on, walk me out." And I said, "Okay." And she waited until we got in the garage, and she got close. She said, "Look at me." She said, "When women start looking like that, they stop fucking. Get yourself together. This ain't cute. This is not cute. All right, I love you." Mwah. And she walked out. Now, to her credit, when I did look down at myself, I was like, you know what? I appreciate the snatch. I appreciate the gathering. I had let myself go, right? Because there is a period of time, especially if you are a single parent, especially if you are a working mother, um, that like life just sort of becomes about the survival, the day in and day out. When they are little, their physical needs are so intense. Their emotional needs are even more intense. There's just not a lot of time and space for you to put a lot of energy into how you look. And so I appreciated the wake up call. I'll never forget it. I'm telling you the story, right? Over a decade later. I think we need people in our life like that. Maybe, maybe not that directly, but as a way to sort of help us find our footing again. Okay. And so, did I go back to dressing like I did before I had a kid? Not all the way, right? Some things had to change, and I was aging as well. But what it did was it snapped me back into awareness that, like, wait a minute, I was a whole woman before I had this baby, and I need to be a whole woman now that I have this baby. And I think that that is the fundamental message I want you to take away around why you can very much, and you very much should, keep it sexy. And whether you are a mother to one, two, three, four, 10, right? Because you are yourself first. You belong to you first, right? And even if you start small, it is the intentional reclamation of yourself for yourself that helps you hold on to that desire, that helps you reconnect with yourself as a desirable person, as an erotic being, right? Um, and so if you are able to get back in touch with realizing and owning, I am a whole woman and I have layers, and I've added a new layer, right? I'm a whole woman that has multiple roles, and I've added a new role, but that doesn't mean that I have to sacrifice, right? One of the other things that can sometimes happen is there can be an increase in relationship stress, interpersonal stress if you are married. Um, there's actually some research that shows about 20% of married couples experience separation in the first year of their of becoming parents. So we can look at that a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different sort of intervening factors. And one of the things I would encourage you to think about, if you are married, you are partnered, is how to engage your partner in a way that facilitates you being able to reclaim your erotic self, right? That is not the same as saying that he is in charge of, right? Or that his desires or his pacing, his needs sort of take precedent over yours. I had to work really hard not to say that T word. Take precedent over yours, it is to say that you can use your partner as a support, right? As a way to say, listen, I don't want to lose sight of this part. I love making this baby with you. I want to do the same things that we did to make the baby. Maybe not make no more babies no time soon, but I want to engage in those activities. Um, let's problem solve together. Like, let's have a plan. Let's work through it, right? Communicate about that is what I'm saying. So it's not something that you have to figure out on your own, but it is something that you have to be responsible for, right? And that is the difference, right? Be responsible for getting to know your new body. Be responsible for loving your new body. Be responsible for um, not being willing to let your sexuality, your sensuality, your erotic access to pleasure drop off the plate, right? Just absolute refusal that that will be the case is a really important place to start. Listen, those kids, they don't care nothing about you. My best friend has a daughter that's 15 months older than my daughter, and so she had sort of been on that walk before of parenting before I did, and obviously I had other mothering friends, and I would hear her say all the time, "These kids don't care nothing about me. These kids don't care about us," and I really didn't know what it meant. It's right, because that is how they're developmentally designed, right? They are designed to get all of their needs met first and foremostly. You get yours where you can and how you can. And so there are a lot of demands on you, right? um, we can talk about emotional labor and domestic labor and how there still tends to be an imbalance between men and women in married relationships or committed partnerships, right around those things. That's a whole other episode. What I'm sharing is that the utility, right? The amount of effort and intention and time required of mothering, especially in this hating ass society. This society hates parents. Like this society hates children. So we don't have the sort of communal, collective supports and resources that we need to help smooth out that process and that transition, right? To help sort of live more in balance. So we're fighting against a lot of systemic and structural factors with regard to race, gender intersections, patriarchy, class, um, all the things. Okay. But to sort of get down to like the nitty gritty of that, when you are so focused on the feeding, the feeding, watering, cleaning, the care, sheltering of the children, there can oftentimes feel like I don't have anything left for anybody. And the last thing I want to do is sort of have somebody else touch me, be on top of me, demand something of me, right? And so if you find yourself thinking that way, or or if you are not seeing yourself that way, but your partner is now like, well, she's a mom and I want to be respectful. And like sometimes that happens, right? Like, because the correlation that we have with mothering and sexy just does not go together. Like the matriarch, moo moo, like, house coat, not sexy, right? They like, we have these internalized ideas and schemas about sex and who's sexy and who isn't. And oftentimes motherhood is not on that list. So it might not be you, it might be your partner or your spouse, right? If you see it happening, name it. Like, name it. And then say that this is not sort of a unchangeable experience, right? That it might take, and it will take a good deal of intentionality, strategy, practice, commitment, but it doesn't mean that you have to give into it, right? So I don't want to hear about mom guilt. Those kids don't care about you. So you have to care about yourself. Those kids don't care about your marriage. They love you. They need their mama. They need their daddy. They cuddly, they cute, they sweet, they're loving, they're wonderful, they're funny, they're your heart living outside your body. They're all these amazing things, but what they are not are people that are concerned about, aware of, or invested in your sense of sensuality or eroticism. That ain't their job, their business, nothing. And so it's going to require you to say, that's me. I gotta figure out where to fit that in for myself and strategize and be intentional about it, right? So the need of like the guilt, miss me with that. Don't do it. Maybe it's because I have been a single parent full time the entire time. I've had to make adjustments because for me, it was either I'm going to end my life as an erotic person, like I'm going to say at age 37 that, sex was fun for the first several years of my life, but never again. Or I had to figure out a way to integrate all these parts of myself. I chose to integrate all the parts of myself. So it can be done. There are women that have wonderful, robust sex lives, um, enjoyable, satisfactory sex lives, and they have kids and they have good relationships with their kids and they have good relationships with their partner and spouse and good relationships with other people in their lives, right? It is possible, but the intentionality is where it starts. The intentionality is where it starts. Okay. It's just not worth it for you to give up that much of yourself. You, one of the reasons why I talk so much about pleasure and Black women and pleasure is because there is nothing and nobody that is rooting for us to center our pleasure. If we don't do it for ourselves, no one else will. In fact, everyone else in the world benefits from us if we continue to deprioritize that for ourselves. But what that means is we end up living partial lives. Like we end up living smaller lives. And so motherhood, we want to celebrate that, right? It's an active choice for people to have. You should be able to do that and be able to retain the best parts of yourself, including your erotic, sensual selves. Okay. Um, if there are any comments or any questions, please make sure you drop them in the chat. Um, I would love to hear what you're thinking about this, what your experience has been, um, to make sure that I'm hitting all the points that you want me to hit. So, what does healthy, sexy mothering look like? Just kidding. But not really. Um, I think it looks like balance, right? There are for sure going to be points in the motherhood journey in which you are limited in time, energy, resources, where you are going to not have the sort of support you need to take the weekend getaway, right? You won't be able to always be able to have the marathon making love all night till the sun comes up, right? Like, but here's the thing, rather than see that as a deficit or an obstacle, see it as a challenge. Look at it as a way to bring in the creativity, the playfulness, the curiosity, the adventure into your sex life, right? It's got to be done differently, and that's a good thing, because the worst thing would be to stay stuck in a rut. The worst thing would be to like let the busyness and the overwhelm of it take over, right? So it is about the balance and the curiosity, the playfulness around it, right? And get into the habit of knowing that you need to and should be reinventing yourself as a sensual sexual being going forward, right? Like like you don't just sort of evolve as a sexual being around puberty and adolescence and you stay that way forever. No, you need to constantly be inviting curiosity and getting to know her and trying different things out. And so let motherhood be the opportunity for you to do that, right? So let's look more into also decentering intercourse as sex, as how we define our erotic sex life, right? one of the biggest challenges that we have in our heterosexist monogamous framework is really an emphasis on penetration and intercourse. And one, there is a very distinct period of time after childbirth and when you can't get it in, right? Some of y'all do. We know there are plenty of Irish twins, Project twins, whatever you want to call them, running around, right? You should let your body rest. Okay. You should do that. Um, but there will be other times, right, where there's just so much demand on you that if you are only focusing on the intercourse as your definition of sex life, you will be deeply disappointed, right? It will feel less than, right? So we want to learn to celebrate all types of sex. We want to learn to celebrate oral sex. We want to learn to celebrate quickies. We want to learn to celebrate sex in unconventional locations, private, okay, safe, respectable, but unconventional locations, right? We want to think about how we extend foreplay across the days, okay? That we might get interrupted. We might not both finish. We neither one of us might finish and the other one may not. We might not even get to what we thought we were going to do. But we can have fun and experience pleasure all along the way, right? Use it as an opportunity to get embodied as a different way. That is what I think a healthy, sexy, mothering relationship sort of looks like. And staying in touch with your femininity, your sensuality, in whatever way that is embodied in you will also always serve you well, right? Don't try to mimic or be something you're not, right? You know what fits well on you and what doesn't. And if you don't, spend some time engaging and exploring around that as well. It is so possible. It's so important. And you absolutely deserve it. So, one of the things that I like to do every episode is yourself let yourself unfold. Talk about what I know, because I know a lot of stuff. Okay. Dr. Nikki knows, she be knowing. And so I had a question that was about being um, touched out, right? It's Dr. Nikki. I love my husband. We have a healthy sex life. Um, we're still very much attracted to each other. And yet, some days I just don't want no other person to touch me. Not one. Um, the kids have touched me, they pulled on me, tapped me, all the things. And so when I get ready for bed at night, get off me, right? This is my ad lib. This is my nonverbal interpretation of the question. Uh, what do I do, right? What do you do about being touched out? I get it. I had been there before. So one, I will tell you, it doesn't last forever. That's the first thing. It doesn't last forever. I have a teenager now, and I could barely get her to hug me. That's not true. She will hug me, but like the cuddling and the just being up under me because she wanted to be like, like you're not carrying them around at a certain age. They don't really want to be bothered. They're in their room more often than not. They're gone with their friends, right? So it doesn't last forever. That's one thing. But I also know like that is that's a thing, right? That happens. You have to exercise boundaries. Kids need to learn boundaries too. Okay. You need to, one, let me back up. First, you need to sort of have your own internal barometer, your own sense of awareness around like when you're reaching that limit. Is it connected to other hormonal cycles, right? Like as your period returns, or there are times of the month where like everything is irritable, right? Um, are there other stressors, right, that might make you more or less tolerant of that, right? So do always start with yourself first. Always start with your own homework first, okay? And then what you want to do is sort of get conversant about when you're getting close to that period. Don't let it cross over, right? And there's an opportunity to say, you know, mommy needs some time to herself, right? Mommy needs her body to herself, right? And I love you and I appreciate you and I'm so happy to be here together. But if we could play a game, right? So make it fun, right? But put boundaries on that. Because here's the other thing, the reason why boundaries and consent around touch are so important to teach and model and socialize as normal, because you want them to be able to do the same thing for themselves. You want them to be able to say, I don't want to be touched in a certain way, right? I don't, you want them to have a sense of ownership over their own body. And the way that you do that is by modeling that for them. And that way, that allows you to feel a greater sense of autonomy and controlling your own body. It allows you to also stay more attuned to your body so you can do the things it needs to sort of bring you back to a sense of calm, bring you back to grounding, bring you back to yourself, right? You can also create some buffer time in the evening, especially as I find that that's when my clients talk about being touched out. It's like it's at the end of the day, right? Like no. And so create some intentional buffer time, right? A lot of us are doing our in wind down time scrolling and our devices sort of mindlessly disconnecting, right? See if you can sort of shift the momentum around that and do some work to reclaim your body for yourself so that you create more of sort of like a bookmark between the professional you, the mom you, the like go 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 you, and the sensual, sexy, um I still want to be touched in the right way you. Okay? And that brings us to our last bit, which is yeah, let yourself unfold. Our pleasure practice for the week. So last week, first of all, when you are here, you need to let me know if you did the homework from last week, which was to do a guided reflective meditation of the last time you felt fully alive and fully turned on, fully embodied in pleasure, right? And how that landed on each of your senses. So if you did your homework, you can go over to the community tab and leave a message for us if you would like. You could drop a comment in the comments for this episode. I'm good with either way, but let us know how it went. What'd you learn? What was it like? This week's pleasure practice is to reconnect with your erotic self through your own touch. Okay. Part of what happens in motherhood, part of what happens in late stage capitalism, in the busyness of doing all of the things, being everywhere, is that uh, um, everything becomes sort of utilitarian. Everything becomes like in service of the productivity, right? To check it off the list, to move in efficiency. And that can also look like our attending to our bodies, our showers, our putting on our lotion, our getting ourselves together, looking through ourselves, at ourselves, and not really like into ourselves for when we're like getting ready for the workday or for bed, right? So, your pleasure practice for this week is to be intentional about slowing down the next time you are taking your shower. If you want to get in a hot soak and make it extra sexy, you know I very much will support that for you. But to take some time, instead of making the washing of the body efficient, utilitarian, functional, slow down and reconnect with your body. Caress your own skin, right? Look at all the ways, observe all the ways it's changed, where you have more curves than you once had before, right? Front and back, side to side, right? Get to know them, love them, right? Engage in a way that allows you to be fully grounded and present in the moment, and shift the focus from utilitarian, from efficiency to eroticism to sensuality. See if there are parts on your body that light up in different ways than you remembered or that you haven't attended to in a while. See if you can really get a refined, nuanced sense of what parts of your skin body is more sensitive to others. What is it like for you to touch your body versus the feel of the shower spray, right? The warmth of the water. Play around, take some time to make your shower an erotic experience and see how you feel on the other side. See what shifts for you. See what changes for you. And you don't have to share that with anyone. It doesn't have to be for anyone. It can be just for you. Okay. So that is this week's pleasure practice. Reconnect with the body. Be a sexy mama. Okay. Uh, you didn't hear from me, but it may or may not be true that somebody's Netflix screen name in this house is Sexy Mama, right? Remind yourself. Don't let her go. She is in there. You just have to reclaim her in a new way. All right. Thank you so much again for spending some time with me this week. Dr. Nikki knows this was a pleasure and a joy. If you have any questions for me, you can always hit me up at Nikki at Dr. Nikki Knows. Check out my website for all of my services and offerings. And if you have questions, things you want me to answer in my Dr. Nikki Knows segment, you can either DM me on Instagram or you can reach out to me at Nikki at Dr. Nikki Knows. And I'll see you all again here next week, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. live. I'm here. You're here. Let's go. Have a good one.